There is a feeling nobody talks about out loud, yet almost everyone watching this video has experienced it. It is that strange sensation of working on something that once consumed you with excitement, and then, without warning, without any apparent reason, without anyone doing anything to you, without any bad event occurring, it simply goes dark. As if someone disconnected a switch deep inside you. You feel nothing for the thing that once kept you up at night. And the worst part is not the loss of enthusiasm itself. The worst part is what comes next. You look in the mirror and you ask yourself, what is wrong with me? Why can I never finish anything? Why am I like this? And that is when the self-judgment begins, the self-attack, the endless list of labels you pin on yourself. Inconsistent, lazy, scattered, no willpower, incapable of committing to anything. And those labels hurt. They hurt because you repeat them so many times that they start to feel like the truth. But today, I'm going to tell you something that perhaps nobody has ever said to you directly. It is not your fault. And I'm not saying that to make you feel better with a cheap cliche. I am saying it because there is a scientific, neurological, real explanation for why your brain does exactly this. And once you understand it, you will not only stop attacking yourself, you will begin to understand yourself in a completely different way. Welcome to Blog Notes. And today we are going to talk about something I call the internal death, and the science that sits underneath it. Before we get into the brain, I need to tell you something about puzzles. Imagine you have a 1,000-piece puzzle in front of you. When you first open the box and see all those pieces scattered randomly, something activates inside you, a kind of energy, a quiet impulse that says, let us see if I can do this. You start organizing, you find the corners, you begin to see patterns, and every time a piece clicks into place, you feel something. A small internal satisfaction, a little reward. That sensation keeps you in the game. Days pass, the puzzle takes shape. You can now see the complete image. You know roughly where each piece belongs. And then a very specific moment arrives. Only one piece remains. One single piece. The image is almost complete. Any reasonable person would say, this is the best moment. You are almost done. But something strange happens. You look at that last piece, and instead of excitement, you feel an odd emptiness, as if the game had already ended before you officially finished it. And in that moment, rather than placing the final piece, your mind begins to wander. Is there another puzzle somewhere? What else could I do? What is the point of placing this last piece when I already know how it ends? That is not a quirk of your personality. That is your brain functioning exactly as it was designed to function. And to understand it, we need to talk about the most misunderstood substance in modern neuroscience: dopamine. You have probably heard it 1,000 times. The pleasure hormone, the feel-good chemical, the substance of well-being. And yes, it relates to all of those things. But that definition is incomplete. So incomplete that it leads us to entirely wrong conclusions about ourselves. Dopamine is not the hormone of pleasure. Dopamine is the hormone of anticipation, of desire, of the hunt. Dopamine does not activate when you get something. Dopamine activates when your brain believes it is about to get something it does not yet have. There is a classic experiment that demonstrates this in a striking way. In the early 1990s, neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz was studying the behavior of dopaminergic neurons in monkeys. What he discovered permanently changed how we understand this substance. When monkeys were unexpectedly given apple juice, their dopaminergic neurons fired. That was expected. Pleasure equals dopamine. But then Schultz did something different. He began adding a signal before the juice. A light, for example. First the light, then the juice. And what happened was remarkable. After several trials, the dopaminergic neurons stopped firing when the juice arrived and began firing when the light appeared. In other words, the brain transferred the dopamine reward from the moment of receiving the thing to the moment of anticipating that the thing was about to arrive. And when Schultz did the cruelest part of the experiment, which was triggering the light and withholding the juice, dopamine levels did not stay flat. They dropped below baseline. The brain did not simply stop rewarding you. It punished you for not receiving what it expected. That is exactly what happens in your brain every time something stops exciting you. You did not become lazy. Your dopamine system already solved the mystery. It already processed the anticipated reward. And now it has nothing left to anticipate. The puzzle has no unknown pieces. And without unknowns, there is no dopamine. And without dopamine, there is no motivation. Now I want you to understand something important. This does not affect everyone equally. There are people who can follow the same routine for years and feel relatively fine. They go to work, complete their tasks, and although they are not thrilled, they do not experience that internal death we are talking about, and that is perfectly valid for them. But there are other people, and you are probably one of them if you are watching this video. People whose dopaminergic system is especially sensitive to novelty, especially reactive to new challenges, especially dependent on what neuroscientists call reward uncertainty. These people, when they learn something new, when they discover a subject they never encountered before, when they face a problem they have never solved, experience levels of dopaminergic activation that are genuinely intense, like a fire, a bright burning fire that consumes them in a way almost no one else understands. But that same fire, by its very nature, requires new fuel constantly. And when the fuel runs out, when the subject no longer has unanswered questions, when the skill no longer presents real challenges, the fire does not gradually dim. It goes out all at once, as if it never existed. That is the internal death. That moment when you look at something that 3 months ago kept you awake at night and you feel nothing. A flat emptiness. An indifference that frightens you because you cannot explain where it came from. And here is where the most painful part begins. Because when that happens, when that fire goes out, the world around you does not understand what is happening. And so the comments start. You changed projects again. I thought you were going to become a chef, and now you want to study programming. You never finish anything. You have no discipline. You are too volatile. And the worst part is that you start believing it yourself. Because if only one person said it, you could ignore it. But when you hear it enough times, when you see it confirmed in the pattern of things you start and never finish, when you feel it like a shadow following you from project to project, from career to career, from identity to identity, you can no longer ignore it, you absorb it. And then the cycle becomes toxic. You find something new, you get excited, you throw yourself into it completely. Your brain fills with dopamine for weeks or even months. You feel alive, productive, focused. And then the internal death arrives. And instead of simply recognizing it and moving forward, you get trapped in the judgment. In the story that you are a person incapable of commitment. And that story means you begin the next project already carrying that weight. And everything becomes harder. You need to know this. That cycle is not a character flaw. It is a neurological system that never received the right instruction manual. There is a concept in psychology I want to introduce here. It is called the learning curve, and its relationship to intrinsic motivation. When you learn something new, you move through several stages. In the first, which we might call unconscious incompetence, you do not know what you do not know. Everything is a mystery. The brain activates enormously because there is a nearly infinite number of unknowns. Dopamine flows freely. Everything is stimulating. In the second stage, conscious incompetence, you begin to realize how much you do not know. This can be intimidating, but it is also fascinating. The brain is still active, still learning. In the third stage, conscious competence, you can now do the thing, but it still requires deliberate effort and concentration. There is still real challenge. Dopamine still has work to do. And then comes the fourth stage, unconscious competence. You do it automatically. You no longer have to think about it. The mystery is solved. The unknowns are answered. The puzzle is complete. And at that point, the dopaminergic system begins searching for another puzzle. For most people, this cycle takes years per skill. For people with brains that are highly sensitive to novelty, it may take months, or weeks, or even days, depending on the complexity of the subject. And here is the cruel paradox. The more intelligent you are, the faster you learn, the faster you reach unconscious competence, and the faster the fire goes out. Think about some of the most fascinating human beings in history, those we call polymaths. Leonardo da Vinci. Do you know how many projects he left unfinished? Historians estimate he completed fewer than 20 works across his entire lifetime. He had notebooks filled with inventions he never built, systems he never implemented, ideas abandoned halfway through. For centuries, this was interpreted as a weakness, a lack of discipline, a failure of character. Today we know it was exactly the opposite. Da Vinci did not abandon projects because he was incapable of finishing them. He abandoned them because his brain had already extracted the knowledge it needed. Nikola Tesla began dozens of projects he never completed. His mind leapt between ideas at a speed his contemporaries could not follow. And while many saw this as a weakness, that same capacity to leap was what allowed him to connect concepts no one else would have connected. Do you see the pattern? These people were not perfect. Their way of functioning came with real costs. But the core of their inconsistency was not a failure. It was the visible expression of a specific kind of brain. One that requires novelty, challenge, and open questions in order to operate at full capacity. Now I need to be honest with you, because it would be irresponsible of me to paint all of this as purely positive. The internal death has real consequences. When your reward system shuts down before you have finished something, things get left undone. Relationships become complicated because people do not understand your changes in direction. Projects never reach their full potential because you walk away at the 90% mark. Careers do not develop in the most effective way. There is a persistent feeling of fragmentation, of being many different people without a clear identity, and that hurts. I do not want to minimize that, but I also want you to see the other side. Because the very same characteristic that makes you feel inconsistent is what allows you to learn new things at a speed that genuinely astonishes people. It is what allows you to connect ideas from completely different fields. It is what makes you capable of adapting when the world shifts, when an industry disappears, when something new emerges that no one else yet knows how to do. In a world that changed slowly, where specialization was the key to survival, this kind of brain was considered a problem. In a world that changes as rapidly as ours, where the capacity to continuously learn new things is a brutal competitive advantage, this kind of brain may be exactly what is needed. The problem is not the brain. The problem is that nobody gave you the instruction manual for using it well. So what do you do with all of this? The first thing, and this is the most important thing I will say today, is to stop treating it as a problem that needs to be fixed. There is nothing broken in you. Your brain functions in a specific way. That way has strengths and it has costs, like any other type of brain. When you truly integrate that, something fundamental shifts. You stop spending energy on judgment. And all the energy you were previously spending on attacking yourself, on asking what is wrong with you, on comparing yourself to people whose brains function differently, that energy becomes available for something else. For learning, for exploring, for creating. The second thing is learning to distinguish between the real internal death and simply having a bad day. Not every bout of boredom is a signal that it is time to move on. Sometimes it is just resistance. Sometimes you are tired. Sometimes you need rest. The real internal death has a specific quality. It is flat. It is consistent. It comes accompanied by the sense that there are no more unanswered questions in that territory. When it is genuine, the question is not, how do I force myself to continue? The question is, what does my brain take with it when it moves on? What connection can I carry from this domain into the next? The third thing, and this is something the most successful polymaths have discovered intuitively, is to design your life so that there is always something in the novelty phase. Not one single thing. Several things in parallel at different stages of learning. When one enters the phase of unconscious competence and the fire begins to fade, there is another that is in full conscious incompetence, burning with all the energy of the unknown. This is not escapism. This is not a lack of commitment. This is an energy management strategy for a specific type of brain. There is a framework I find genuinely useful and want to leave you with as a concrete tool. I call it depth projects versus surface projects. Surface projects are those you explore quickly, extract what you need from, and allow yourself to release when the fire fades. They are your way of continuously feeding your brain's need for novelty. Depth projects are different. These are the ones in which you make a conscious and deliberate decision to go beyond unconscious competence, to pursue mastery. And mastery, unlike competence, always has new layers, always has new questions, always has new puzzles within the puzzle. The key is choosing your depth projects wisely, choosing those that are rich enough, complex enough, and inexhaustible enough to keep generating new unknowns for years. The great fields of knowledge have that property. Music, not a single genre, but music as a system. Writing, not one style, but language as a tool. Human psychology, physics, philosophy. Having one or two depth projects does not mean abandoning your surface projects. It means having a structure, an anchor, something that grows with you while you explore freely in every other direction. I want you to leave with one very specific thing before this video ends. That moment you feel when the fire goes out. When you look at something that once thrilled you and feel that flat emptiness. That moment you have interpreted for so long as a sign that something is wrong with you. That moment is actually a signal that you learned, that your brain processed what it needed to process, that the puzzle was sufficiently resolved for your anticipation system to no longer need to stay there. It is not failure, it is completion. A completion that does not always arrive with the formal ceremony of "I finished," but with the internal knowledge that you extracted what that territory had to give you at this moment in your life. And from that perspective, you are not someone who abandons everything they start. You are someone who learns with an intensity that most people cannot sustain, in cycles that are shorter and deeper than the world around you is accustomed to seeing. That is not a defect. It is a way of being. And like every way of being, it has its own instruction manual. The work is not to change yourself. The work is to learn to use yourself well. And in many ways, that is exactly what this channel will keep exploring. If something said today resonated with you, if at any point in this video you felt that someone was finally describing something you have lived but never been able to name, then this is your place. Because here we will keep talking about how brains that do not fit the standard mold actually work, how they learn, how they feel, how they get lost, and how they find themselves. The internal death is not the end of anything. It is the signal that it is time for a new beginning. And if you learn to read it that way, if you learn to receive it without the weight of judgment, without the burden of believing it means something bad about who you are, then it stops being a death. And it becomes something that looks more like a molt, a transformation, the signal that your brain is ready for the next puzzle. And trust me, there will always be a next puzzle. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.